What if I told you that the trillions of dollars spent on World War II could have reshaped the world as we know it? Imagine if instead of destruction, that money was given directly to the people of countries like the United States, Russia, Germany, England, Poland, France, India, and Japan, or even better. What if all that wealth was invested in peaceful coexistence, education, research, space exploration, and the eradication of poverty? How different would our world look today? Let's dive into the staggering financial cost of World War II, the human toll, the destruction of entire cities, and what could have been achieved if that wealth was redirected toward peace and progress. World War II cost the world approximately $1.6 trillion in the 1940s, which, when adjusted for inflation, is around $30 trillion today. That's an astronomical figure, but let me give you some perspective. It's more than the combined GDP of 150 countries today. It's enough to fund universal education for every child on the planet for 750 years. We could eradicate global poverty for the next 85 years with that money. But instead of investing in peace, this $30 trillion was spent on war, bombs, tanks, planes, and destruction. Now imagine if that money had been distributed to the citizens of these countries, not to fight but to build their futures. Let's break it down country by country. The United States spent about $341 billion on the war, which equals $4.1 trillion today. In 1945, the population of the United States was about 140 million people. If each person had received their share of the war costs, they would have gotten $29,000 each. Housing crisis? Gone. Every family could have afforded a home, leading to a housing boom decades earlier. Imagine the education revolution that could have taken place. This money could have funded free college education for millions, creating a highly educated workforce ready to innovate. Rather than spending on destruction, the United States could have built the world's first tech-driven economy by the 1950s, leading the global shift toward innovation and industry decades ahead of time. Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, paid a heavy price during the war, losing 27 million lives and spending $192 billion, equal to $3.4 trillion today. With a population of about 200 million, each Russian could have received $17,000. Instead of focusing on rebuilding after the war and engaging in the Cold War, the Soviet Union could have invested in its space program and scientific research earlier. Imagine Russia and the US collaborating on space exploration in the 1960s, resulting in colonies on Mars by the 1980s. Russia could have emerged as a technological superpower, leading in fields like space exploration, energy production, and agriculture. Germany spent approximately $272 billion on the war, which is around $4.7 trillion today. With 70 million citizens, each German could have received about $67,000. Instead of rebuilding from rubble, Germany could have invested in becoming the world's engineering hub much earlier. This windfall could have gone into renewable energy development, making Germany the leader in sustainable technologies decades before climate change became a global concern. Germany, with its engineering talent, could have accelerated the world's shift to green energy, solving the climate crisis before it even began. The UK spent $120 billion on the war, which translates to $2 trillion today. With 48 million citizens, each British person could have received around $41,000. Imagine if instead of recovering from the Blitz, London became the world's center for financial innovation by the 1950s. The UK's National Health Service, which was created after the war, could have been even more advanced, leading global breakthroughs in medical research and healthcare. Poland, which was invaded by both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, suffered tremendous losses, including 6 million dead and $100 billion in damages, equivalent to $2.8 trillion today. Poland's population was about 35 million. Each citizen could have received about $2,800. Instead of rebuilding from devastation, Poland could have invested in its agricultural economy, becoming a key exporter of food and goods in Europe. France spent $111 billion on the war, about $2 trillion today. France had a population of 40 million people in 1945, so each person would have received about $50,000. Paris could have remained the cultural capital of the world, leading in art, literature, and scientific research without the setbacks of war. Japan spent $56 billion on the war, roughly $1 trillion today. With a population of 70 million, each citizen could have received $14,000. Instead of being reduced to rubble by atomic bombs, Japan could have used this wealth to lead in electronics, robotics, and automobile technology decades earlier, becoming a global innovation hub in the 1940s. India, $88 per person, huge impact. Though not a direct combatant, India played a crucial role, providing 2.5 million soldiers and vast resources to the British war effort. The Bengal famine, caused by wartime resource depletion, resulted in the deaths of 2 million people. The economic loss was $2 billion, about $35 billion today. With 400 million people, each person could have received about $88. Though it seems small, this could have funded basic education for every child, raising literacy rates and fostering a generation of engineers, scientists, and doctors decades before India's rise in the tech world. Part 3. What if the money was invested in peaceful coexistence? Now let's imagine if the $30 trillion spent on war was instead channeled into peaceful coexistence, scientific research, and global progress. Space exploration. With even a fraction of that money, we could have sent manned missions to Mars in the 1980s. NASA, Germany, Russia, and Japan could have collaborated on a global space program, exploring the far reaches of the solar system by now. With $30 trillion, we could have eradicated global poverty for 85 years. Countries like India and Poland could have built modern infrastructure, lifting millions out of poverty and boosting global trade and economies. Instead of investing in war technology, countries could have invested in curing diseases. Imagine if the resources spent on nuclear weapons had gone into cancer research or vaccines. Diseases like HIV, malaria, and even cancer could have been eliminated decades ago. We could have created a global healthcare system that provided free, universal healthcare to every human being on Earth. 4. Education and technological progress. Imagine universal education available to everyone, from rural India to urban Germany. With trillions invested, we could have built a global network of schools and universities, allowing knowledge to flow freely. The internet could have been invented in the 1950s, triggering a technological revolution much earlier than it did. The global workforce would have been years ahead in terms of productivity, innovation, and development. 5. Green energy and climate change. Instead of relying on fossil fuels, the world's great powers could have collaborated on renewable energy. We could have developed solar, wind, and nuclear fusion technologies in the 1950s, preventing the climate crisis we face today. Part 4. The world that could have been. In this alternate world, $30 trillion isn't spent on destruction. It's invested in peace, education, and science. We could have colonized Mars by now. Poverty could be a distant memory, and diseases like cancer could have been cured decades ago. Nations like Germany, Russia, the US, Japan, and India would be working together, leading the world in technological innovation and global cooperation. What do you think the world would look like today if we invested in peace instead of war? If you found this video eye-opening, hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more explorations into alternate histories and what-ifs. Thanks for watching.